That's fine.
That would be good.
It's okay with me.
So, well, to set the stage, I guess I should set the stage.
Yes, please.
Go ahead, yeah.
All right. Well, this has been around for a long time. We've discussed it for a few years because people sort of thought that it's confusing for members that there are two organizations. So we were trying to figure out how could we preserve what we've got, not lose anything, but have some kind of a joint program. And it brought to a head when the state of Washington formed a new organization, and they thought they could do it as an intrinsic part of NACCRA, similar to the way AARP works, where you have a national organization and every state is a chapter. So that sort of forced our hand because things were not handled as adroitly as they should have been. So we formed this committee within NACCRA called the Dues and Membership Committee, which Charlie chaired, and the record of that committee is available on the website if you want to dip into it, but to just try to reconsider all these things. And then it was further discussed in the recent teleconference of the Council of State Presidents chaired by Walt Boyer, and we're trying to figure out a way to have a kind of a joint membership where people would write one check and be members in both organizations, or however the darn thing evolves. I mean, that part of that are the questions that we're talking about. One of the things that many states could benefit from is having Bennett's administration. So there are arrangements where states that don't now use him could gain that with this joint membership model with NACCRA. So that becomes a key part of it. FliCRA already has Bennett's administration, so it's clear that for FliCRA, if more than, say, 5,000 members, that was a number that was put out there, and I'm not sure that Bennett has fully vetted it, but at some number of joint memberships, there'd be an economy in the membership administration processing, so we could provide the joint relationship at a lower cost for Florida. And so that's kind of where we are. You've seen the document. I wrote up that evolving principles thing. What I tried to do was to go back and listen to the whole discussion in the Dues and Membership Committee and think through exactly how this might work across different states, because different states are totally differently organized. For example, Connecticut, they just have an organization of resident councils, and they claim that all CCRC residents in Connecticut are members, but they don't even know who the members are, and they just know that they have 17 resident councils that are members. They also operate on a shoestring because people can drive the whole state. It's pretty easy to drive from one end of the state to the other, and people don't put in for their mileage. So that's one model, so you can see how hard it is to figure out a way to work this out. We're going to have to look state by state. And then everybody says, well, gee, Florida is by far the most successful operation in the country. And from what I've been able to learn of the history of the thing, that's because of Bennett. Apparently, there were 700 members in FliCRA when Bennett got involved, and he evidently worked, I think, with Milt Brummer, and worked out the chapter concept, and Bennett drove the state and built the membership up to something that would be able to support what he was building as an operation. And I think we've all been the beneficiary of what that accomplished. So now we're trying to figure out how can we get the benefit of that at a national level? Now, in terms of national advocacy, there are two avenues. Everybody always thinks in terms of federal, and the federal government does have an impact, you know, particularly with our medical care. I mean, the CMS is the 800-pound gorilla. But for regulating an industry like CCRCs, typically the National Association of Insurance Commissioners develops laws which are then enacted in the various states on the consent agenda. They're on in the NAIC meetings, but are it's a nuisance call. It goes away. I apologize for that. But anyway, they're deliberated on the NAIC meetings, and once the commissioners settle on that, they're adopted in every state without modification. So that's an avenue that we could use to, for example, to get certain things in Florida that might be difficult to accomplish within the political environment in Tallahassee. And I think that most of our memberships, that's far too technical. Most members are just not aware of that. They don't know about it, and they don't relate to it. But I just mention it because there are things at the national level that can help us at the state level. Maybe I've talked long enough.
Let me talk administratively. I think, Jack, the suggestions that you put forth in your email on Sunday is a good way to manage this first teleconference, i.e., that let's identify ourselves and then let the person speak, as you say, for 3 to 5 minutes, and not try to establish any conclusions or recommendations or anything of that nature. Let's just make this a teleconference of stating our views from our experiences, and then from there, let's have access if we need to go back and review what was said, and then have a follow-on meeting. Having said that, I would like to ask Wayne to speak, because Wayne is going to have to break away from this because he has a doctor's appointment at 2:25, and I would like to have Wayne from Oak Hammock or FliCRA speak and discuss his views, and then whoever wants to talk after Wayne is completed. And Wayne, when you do start, identify yourself, and when you're completed your discussion, please identify that you have completed, and we'll follow that administrative process.
Sounds well organized, Jim. Thank you. This is Wayne Forehand from Oak Hammock. I'm sitting out here in the lobby of the doctor's office. I arrived early, or I would be driving over here to get here now. Anyhow, I got to say that Jack Cummings is brilliant, dedicated, and an exciting salesman. I think, Jack, you've put together a big proposal. You indicated to me that you've been talking with Judge Miller, Karen Miller, a very good friend of mine, who I have dinner with about once a week. And yeah, Karen and I work together very closely. I got to just remind everybody that, you know, FliCRA's mission has been to focus on CCRCs. It's not to take on all senior issues. Doing this, we have expanded into some senior issues, and we've been very successful in what we've done. Every year, we have gotten some accomplishment to speak for FliCRA. What Bennett talked about at the last directors meeting, he offered the idea that there would be a optional reduced cost of NaCCRA membership for FliCRA members. I said it would be optional and it would be a reduced cost. And it hit a chord with a whole lot of us. So I just want to start out with that thought. I've got to say that in Region 8, which I'm director of, our growth has stagnated an awful lot. In fact, at Freedom Point, we had a very growing chapter there. They really grew. They got to 200, and we're pretty stuck there. And people are getting a little frustrated down there. At Lake Point Square, membership has been flat. People are older that are running the FliCRA chapter now. As I mentioned at the last meeting, Lakeview Terrace, I've been making strides to get in there, and they just don't even want to hear about it. They have enough trouble trying to man a residence council there. Okamic, we've been pretty dynamic. We've pushed. I was a president for several years and the vice president before regional director. And I got to say, this year, for the first time, we've actually had 7 people come up and say, we want out. We don't want to pay dues. I've been personally affronted in the hallway saying, all you do is ask for money. And I said, wait a minute, we really have accomplished some things, but you just keep asking for money. So what I'm trying to say is recruiting is a difficult thing. If we're to raise the dues, I'm going to tell you, we're going to expect to lose members. I mean, I read the proposal. We talked about, I think, $28 from 18. You got to remember, this last year, the stock market, if you had a good, moderate, balanced portfolio, you probably managed 1.5%. If you had an advisor that was taking another percent out of that, you eked out about 0.5%. And I got to tell you that, you know, many people in these CCRCs, like myself, live off of what they've got in the market there. 2016, it's not looking any better. It's looking quite a lot worse, as you all recognize. So I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here. Another thing I'd like to recall is that 3 years ago, I was a chapter president at Okamic. FliCRA was having some financial problems, and they assessed each member $1. That didn't go over very big with the chapters. And I'm saying $1, not 5 or not 10. At our chapter, we chose to foot the dollar for each member rather than going out and going through the aggravation of trying to increase the dues. Now, several other, probably many other of the chapters did the same thing. And I'm just saying this as a historical perspective. Right now, I've got to indicate that Bennett talked to us about the need to be cutting some expenses. He talked about asking the board what we might think about how we could cut printing cost, perhaps billing some of the printing back to the chapters and things like that. I, at this time, in good conscience, cannot support a mandatory dues increase, whether whoever collects it. I understand that Charlie Polka said that we'd probably lose 3,000 members in FliCRA if we added $5 or $10 to the dues. Now, I heard some other words said that, yeah, we'll get them back. But on the other hand, can FliCRA afford to lose 3,000 members at this time? In the end, it's the FliCRA chapters who are out there making the sale. We collect the money, and we send it on to Tallahassee. It's a tough job. It's a tough market, and I'll close with that.
Thank you, Wayne.
Anybody want to volunteer to go next?
Yeah, I just received an email from Will in the office in Tallahassee. At this time, we have...
Excuse me, who's speaking, please?
Yeah, we have 226 singles,
Who's speaking? I'm sorry to interrupt, but who's speaking?
Bob Smith.
This is Bob Smith, yeah.
Thank you, Bob. I didn't recognize your voice. I don't know you, so I'm sorry. Go ahead.
All right. We have 226 singles and 75 couples in the whole state of Florida that are members of NACCRA, and we have 60 lifetime members. This is for the whole state. and it boils down to about 438 people. And so that's not too many people who are members of NACCRA at this time. And and we also have, according to Will this morning, we have 10,133 FliCRA members. And I kind of agree with Wayne. What he said was that it's going to be difficult to add on a large sum of money. It would be, for a couple, it would be $51. And for a single, it would be $28, and that's for a couple. That's $20 over what they pay now, which is $31. And my thought was this: that I think we should start from the bottom up, and not from the top down. We should find out just exactly where we think our people would be able to accept some additional funding. And just for the heck of it, I figured out that if NACCRA charged $2 and we had 5,000 FliCRA members who would say, okay, I'll go $2 to be in both organizations, that would bring $10,000 into to NACCRA's treasury. Right now, you're receiving about $8,760 with the membership that we have now, or less than that actually, because this was figured 438 times 20, and there are 75 people who are paying less than 20 that are paying $15, so it's actually less than that at this point. And so I'm thinking that, you know, since NACCRA doesn't have a lot of successes as far as benefits to the residents, as I see right now, there are 2, and that's imputed interest and the right to return home. Well, those 2 things are, you know, are important, but, you know, NACCRA could do a lot more than what they are doing, and at the same time, when I say that, I realize the difficulty it is because of a lack of funding to be able to accomplish a lot of lobbying. Being with leading age at this point, I think there is a good chance now that NACCRA can be more involved in policies that leading age is active in the lobbying in Washington, D.C., and for NACCRA to be attached to that and to support some of the things that leading age does, I think would be a definite benefit. But we don't have anything like that to sell people at this point. If we could get something from NACCRA that was, wow, that is really something I think that I like to support, I think we would have a better chance of soliciting members. And so instead of starting at the top, I think we should start from the bottom and work up. If we charge $3 extra for 5,000 people, we're talking $15,000 that would go into the coffers of NACCRA. But we need something from NACCRA that says that, hey, we're doing something that really benefits you as a resident, and it's really worth the money for you to to be involved in this. I'm all in favor of us combining. I think it's a great idea for us to be one organization. But one of the things that I think we might want to consider, instead of looking from the top down, that we would make FliCRA the main organization and NACCRA the adjunct, that they would be a supporting body for our business in the state of Florida. who knows better than the people who live in Florida what Florida needs? And so I think that if we start with FliCRA as the top agency, and that NACCRA as an adjunct to that, I think that might be a benefit. You were talking about leaving the lifeline, not sending the lifeline out anymore. You know, that's about the only thing that we have from that. What is that sound? Is somebody coughing or what? Anyway, I get all of a sudden this sound. Well, anyway, if to get rid of Lifeline, which is really a wonderful, wonderful way to communicate with us some of the ideas that NACCRA has. And, of course, the website that we have is a real benefit. Those two things are things that we need to consider. So I would really like to see NACCRA get more involved with the activities of things that are really important to us. I would like to see them get involved with Social Security, with Medicare, the observation versus the inpatient things, and to follow the federal legislation that, that affects us all. And we need to have information sent to us that there are people that are responding to our needs. We need to have I don't think we can get it done on the state level, so maybe we can get it done on the federal level, that there should be at least a couple of residents that should be voting members of every general board of every CCRC in the country. I think that's something that could be worked on a federal level. And, there are just several things that I think that they could work on a federal level that would benefit us. And so to have that information and to know that NACCRA is working for us in some way would benefit us tremendously in getting people to be members of the combined group. And I think that's all I'm going to say at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who has not spoken besides myself?
This is Steve Nash.
Yeah, Steve, I'm sorry. You want to go next?
Sure, I'll go next. I'll somewhat echo what Bob just said. I don't think there's anything that FliCRA can lose by teaming up in some way, shape, form with NACCRA, because there's a lot of things that can be done that are federal issues that we have no control over. One of the big ones right now is bankruptcy. If one of these things goes into bankruptcy, they go to a federal court. They don't go to a state court. Medicare, he just mentioned, the observation and so on. The other thing, I spent a number of years in the tax field, and a lot of the CCRCs that operate in the state of Florida and throughout the country are tax-exempt entities. Now, they've gotten under some old case laws, and I know where it came from. It grew out of the old churches out of the state of Pennsylvania, really, the Quakers. But at this stage, a lot of these organizations have gotten very large, and I'm not sure that they are running it. The management of the operations are really not acting as fiduciaries of an exempt organization. They're operating as a business. They're there to make money, and they're there to draw big salaries. And, there are some things that you could put by using the tax code. The IRS can write regulations that would stem some of that or put some restraints on it, because I guess the biggest complaint I think I've heard in our residents and when I talk to other members of the board of FliCRA is the annual fee increase. I mean, the state of Florida has the 651 statute, and it specifically states in there, and it refers to the CPI. Well, it was put in 1977, and at that stage in history, inflation was very high, and maybe that was the reason for their wording. And I can't find anywhere, why the legislatures put that specific language in the statute. Normally, there's a reason why they put things in there. I can't find it, but I'm thinking that maybe at this juncture, with at least the tax-exempt CCRCs that operate, maybe you force them, as Bob Smith just says, if the residents don't get a vote for if the residents don't get let's say a vote to elect some portion of the board of directors, which is the thing that's going to drive the fees all the time, we're right back where we started. We're never going to get any place because they're running the show. But I agree that I think the combination would be good, and I think one of the other things, as Bob Smith indicated, and I concur with him, that it's like anything else in again, I'll go back to my tax background, that if you put the tax rate in and you start at 4%, once you get it in there, you can creep it, and there's nothing that's going to stop it. So I agree with him that maybe we should start at the $1 or $2 range or something like that, and have members of FliCRA become members of NACCRA at the same time, and then maybe in a couple of years, if we can show some results, then you try to bump it up a little bit, because I can appreciate the fact that, if you're going to try and lobby in Washington, it's going to cost money. And I guess with that, I'll shut up.
Thank you, Steve. I guess I'm next, and this is Jim Jondro. I spoke at the FliCRA board because I felt, and some of what I've said there will be what I'll say here, so that the NACCRA members will be aware of what was discussed there. At the FliCRA board, I indicated that I do agree that in order for NACCRA to have any impact on Congress, they've got to have the numbers. And that was the major push from Bob Nicholson, to which he reiterated repeatedly that what he's trying to get are numbers of members, so that since they are now listed as a membership organization, they can indicate that they got X thousands of members. Not so much the need for additional funding. Now, having said that, and to which I do believe that with a increasing competition that we're going to have, the seniors are going to have on the Treasury, i.e. Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, those elements are going to be competing for resources at the federal level, and then it's compounded by the increasing number of seniors that are aging right now, the millennium that are now into the 65 and over age group. So we now have increased numbers of seniors competing for more resources at a time when we have an extremely large debt that's facing our nation. In order for NACCRA to compete in that environment, yes, they have to have financial resources, i.e. dues, but they also have to have numbers. Now, I know from the Cypress Village perspective, we are, as part of NACCRA, as a community association. We're paying $200 a year. I know we did it the year before. I can't go beyond that because I'm new in this environment. But if you're talking numbers, NACCRA could very easily say that since Cypress has, let's say, 300 members, which is what we have during this term, that from Cypress Village they get 300 people. Now that's 75% of the total number that Bob Smith indicated exists within Florida that are members of NACCRA. I don't know how many other community associations are there, but if we counted all of those members, that would have a significant impact to which NACCRA could utilize that. Now, to the question of what do we do when we talk about increasing individual members into NACCRA. I am the membership chair for Cypress Village and have been for 2 years. This year, the Residents' Council required that all membership organizations would have the membership drive during the month of January. Part of that was the pushback that the new president of the Residents' Council felt that the residents were indicating that people are always asking for money, and as someone else previously indicated, Wayne is the one that said that, as Wayne indicated, FliCRA was the one that was identified many times. During the month of January, we were very aggressive in talking to the residents, talking to homeowners, because we have equity homeowners here in Cypress Village, and we brought in 48 new members. However, by the end of the month, 98 members did not renew their membership. So I'm down 50 members. So we ended up, the board divvied up those who had not renewed their membership, and we started making phone calls. Well, we're bringing that number up, but I tell you, from my perspective, in my limited experience, it is difficult to maintain and or increase your membership. A comment was made about having a resident on the board of Board of Governors of the CCRCs. From the FliCRA perspective, we know that was a major issue during the leading age FliCRA task force. And while FliCRA wanted to make it directive, leading age was not supportive of that, and that's why the law was changed in 2015 to indicate they may have a resident. The operative term is may. Leading age in February wrote a long article about having a resident on the board. I spoke to Mary Ellen, who was the author of that article, and leading age is not necessarily supportive as an organization of having members on their board of governors. There are some, like Penny Farms, that has 7 residents, and the CEO says that she gains a lot of experience from the residents. However, back to the point, are they in favor of having a resident on the board? I would say the answer is no, because I asked the question in a different manner, and I said, hypothetically, would Leading Age Florida allow a resident on their board? The answer was a strong no. So we know where Leading Age stands on that position. I do think it would be good for NACCRA to tie themselves with Leading Age at the national level and maybe utilize that as opening the door for them to be viewed as an organization that represents at the national level, the residents of communities like CCRCs. When I was advocating with Leading Age in Tallahassee 2 weeks ago, and we visited the offices of the legislators, I was the only resident there, but I made a point with the legislative office to indicate how Leading Age Florida and FliCRA worked together in the legislation that was passed in 2015 and also in 2016. And that was very well received by those offices. So my thinking is that NACCRA could do the same thing when Leading Age is there advocating with congressional representatives. That concludes my comments.
Well, this is Jack. I think this has been very useful. I hesitate to say much. I'll mention just briefly that I'm on the board of Leading Age California, and it's taken 3 years. I've been doing that for now 3 years, and I'm only now beginning to get a little traction. And there's one other resident, but he's fairly typical of the kind of complacent person, and he just goes along. But what I've discovered is that the providers, the industry's challenge is that there's a mindset that the residents are older, frail, sort of demented, declining people who need to be cared for, and that the industry has the expertise, don't really need to listen. Those are things we need to work on. Anyway, I think this has been very useful for today. And
Jack, I'd like to make a comment about one thing that Jim said, if you don't mind.
Sure.
On this thing of membership, Jim, this came directly from the Tallahassee office. These are the people who have paid $20, individual members. They are the only ones that are considered as members in Tallahassee. The people that you're talking about, because we pay $200 here too. We pay that, but that's what our resident council pays to be associated with NACCRA. But it does not indicate that the people that live here are members. And this is a problem that NACCRA has had for the last 3 or 4 years in several areas. It's an easy way to get members. We could include everybody here. We have 400 people that we could include because we pay $200. But that doesn't really do anything financially for NACCRA. So we're considering the only people that are actually members of NACCRA are the ones who pay the pony, the ones that pay the $20 a year. And also, along with keeping members, we've done something here at the Estates that I think is working pretty well. Every time that we signed up a NACCRA member, we asked them if it would be okay if they would authorize our business department to bill them every year for their membership dues. And most of them signed that. In fact, all of them signed that except two. We have two that still want to pay by check. But now, all of our members, we have over 150 members here that are paid members, but they have allowed our business department to be billed by NACCRA, and they pay NACCRA for the membership after they collect the money the following month. And so we've been pretty successful with that. We've only had one or two. We've done this now for about 2 or 3 years, and we've only had about one or two that have, backed off. And it was because of a financial crisis for them. So I just like to put that input in there to add to the discussion.
Bob, Jim Jandro, I at Cypress Village pushed very hard to have the business department bill the members for FliCRA, and I went to the executive director, who concurred with it. He was very supportive. We pushed it up to the regional VP. The regional VP, I think, supported it. At least the indication was that's what she was telling me. However, it had to go all the way to corporate, and Brookdale corporate said no, they would not do it because of the increased workload.
So you're in a profit facility and not.
Yes, I am. I'm in a for-profit, Brookdale.
Let me see if I can't talk to Chris Bird and get that shifted. That doesn't seem well thought out, and I think
Chris Bird, the one that made the decision.
Yeah, well, let me talk to him. I'll see if I have a relationship with him. I think I might be able to help with that. Although
I would greatly appreciate that, because my feeling, and which was the reason why we pushed it, and I was representing also the other Brookdale communities, and I felt that it would improve on the membership, significantly improve the membership numbers.
It would. In California, the providers are almost uniformly hostile toward resident organization, so there's no way that any provider would ever allow dues collection. They just are antagonistic toward a resident organization. Anyway, I think this has been very useful. Why don't we ponder it? I'm going to suggest that we meet again in 2 weeks. Is that too often for people, or do you think that would keep it moving?
Well, that's fine with me. I'm okay with it.
I'm okay with that also. If you could put out how we can access the minutes of this session, so we can go back to it, and I think, Jack, maybe we could put together something that structures our next teleconference.
Yeah, I'll try to do that. What I was thinking, I tend to be analytical to a fault, as you've probably learned already.
That's great.
Some of the ideas. I mean,
Jack, that is an understatement.
Anyway, I heard pricing is an issue, performance is an issue, the state-federal balance is an issue. For Steve Nash, one thought that came to mind, that's something I've been thinking about, but we don't have the resources to pursue it. I talked with Herb Beller, who's an established Washington attorney, and the fee to do what I'm going to suggest would be like $25,000. Well, that's pretty much NACCRA's budget right there, because you can imagine, as Jim said, they send in $200 for 300 people. So, we don't have a huge amount of money. But anyway, the idea was to say that as a nonprofit, to have nonprofit status in this, under Revenue Ruling 72-124, which is the ruling that allows luxury senior housing to be nonprofit, it would only sustain if the residents were the members in the nonprofit organization. So if the residents were the members, then they would be in charge.
The ones that elect the board.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah.
So there are things we can do. Well, anyway, I'll do some analysis and get this recording out to you all, and we'll meet again on March 10th, which is the day before I go to Washington for the Washington, D.C. meeting. So that'll be good because we'll be able to report there on it.
Great.
Okay. Thank
all
you.
Right. Thank you all for your participation. This has been very, very helpful. Do you agree, Jim?
Yes, I agree 100%. I think we put a lot of different comments out there. I think it gives us, as your suggestion gives us a chance to mull over those considerations and see where we think we can go next.
Okay. Well, thank you all very much, and we'll be talking.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Sharon.